Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rector from Cisco Systems, and while I was preparing this speech, I ran across this cartoon, and I thought it would resonate with a lot of you out in the audience. How many people have had to deal with silos in their organization? People in different groups who may or may not want to work together. So I thought this would be familiar to some of you. You've got the virtual team leader saying, hey, let's work together. And you've got the function saying, well, that's not part of my P&L. The country saying, that's not part of my objectives. And the product group, well, I'd like to help, but I don't know. So Cisco, being the size that it is no stranger to these silos. But we are working hard to break them down. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is why we're developing this program around integrated intelligence. Really, my portion focused on text analytics. Talk about how we began with influencer intelligence, and then how we're evolving with our customer intelligence, and then this really holistic model. So if you think about integrated influencer or customer intelligence, really, we're leveraging it for several things. We are using it to really drive evidence-based strategy. You've all been in companies where people are developing their strategy on anecdotal evidence, or they've talked to somebody and, this person says we should do this, but we're really trying to develop strategy based on evidence. So it started with a few things, and I'm going to provide examples for each of these. We really look at enabling accountability through metrics, and then driving strategic direction, and then identifying key discussions and changing perception about Cisco and integrating our messaging. And then understanding how to optimize that communications mix through all of the different audiences that we reach, as well as understanding the voice of the customer. So starting with influencer intelligence, several years ago, even before the burgeoning of social media, we had our PR team who was looking at traditional media. We had our analyst team who were talking to the analysts, and then our financial analyst team talking to the financial analysts, and then, of course, our employees. But we were talking to them in silos. And so we said, how can we get an understanding of all of these audiences collectively? And then, of course, social media started growing, and we said, what is social media? How do we leverage this in a B2B situation? So we developed a platform where we really looked at who are those influencers that matter to our customers. So we have a completely different view that looks at, from a brand perspective, the social media and that big pipe of data. But when you look from a B2B perspective of who really influences your customers, you really want to narrow that analysis to those influencers who really help make an impact on your business. So we developed kind of an integrated view across top 300. We started with English language, traditional media. We've now evolved that in the last year to the top 12 countries and included non-English language. We have isolated the top 50 social media, and again, that complements that kind of full brand view of the social media team that's not integrated into this kind of deep analytics view. Financial analyst reports. So what are the financial analysts saying about Cisco and our peers? And then industry analysts, not just their reports, the Gartner, the Forrester, the IDC, but what are the reports saying? What are they blogging about? Any venue where an analyst is speaking about Cisco or peers. And then, of course, our own internal employees. We have 60,000 plus employees who are huge influencers. So we develop quarterly reports. We can also do specific events and crisis analysis, but really we have developed a program around quarterly analysis, 2 key metrics, and we do a lot more deeper dives of some of this data. But really the 2 key metrics, and I think it's been mentioned a couple of times, are sentiment and the share of voice. And share of voice we look at overall, but we also look at in terms of positive share of voice and negative share of voice. And again, we look at it holistically on a global view, and we also look at it in the top 12 countries where we compete. So we also use this for a deep dive into kind of discussion and where our messages are coming through. And one of our key focus areas is the data center. So this was about a year ago. We leverage a thing called Zero Mindshare. So we look at what is the positive discussion that is related to our peers where Cisco is not included in the discussion. And we isolate that, for example, to data center. So all that data center discussion, what are some of our peers, what's being discussed about them, and we are not even appearing. And you can see from this heat map, and this is just isolating positive, that it was really apparent that we were being left out of the cloud conversation. So you can dig into the data a little bit more and understanding what's driving that, but we really leverage this data in addition to other data to show our executives, hey, we are really missing an opportunity in the cloud. We need to get our story together. So we, based on this and other data, we were able to secure resources. We had a cloud CTO. We went on a tour. We have a real focus in the cloud. And if you look at the follow-up data, you can see that we've really had an impact on share of voice and understanding in the market of our cloud. We also use this data to understand our communications mix. So I can't provide a lot of real-world examples, so these charts kind of just show generic Cisco conversation. But the idea is, if you're looking across the different audiences, what's driving what? So does an analyst say something? And remember, this is B2B, so a lot of times it could be driven by an industry analyst says something, somebody blogs that, then it's tweeted, and then it's picked up in traditional media, or vice versa. So we look at, in certain areas, what drives what, and then how do we focus those efforts. And then finally, the employees. So again, with the 60,000 plus employees, we're a communications company, so we have a lot of internal communications tools. We have internal blogs, internal discussion forums. We still have old-fashioned email lists that people subscribe to and people email back and forth, not anything private, so we're not invading anybody's private email space. But we are analyzing any kind of internally within Cisco, any conversation that's publicly available. We will analyze, we have company meetings where we send out surveys and we get employee verbatims back. We have live chats during surveys or during the company meetings, and we capture all of that. So, and then we have surveys twice a year where we ask verbatim questions. So we have this really rich volume of data that we get from our employees. And this is used for either in specific situations, but on a monthly basis. And again, I'm showing you kind of a generic chart here. We do dive into certain themes, what's driving the negative or hopefully the positive. Certainly last year during some of our transition, there was a lot of focus on the employee comments, and we had a weekly report going up to our CEO and the board, basically saying this is the employee sentiment, this is what's being discussed, and this is how we need to communicate with our employees because this is what they're concerned about. So we've really spent the last few years focusing kind of on the influencer, and I think we've developed a pretty solid platform. But then we needed to evolve to say, oh, wait, there's our customers. We need to be really focused on our customers, and we are, and we have lots of teams within Cisco who are focused on our customer, but we're doing it in silos. So we've been developing this program called the Integrated Voice of the Customer. And if you kind of look at these concentric circles, they represent currently some of the silos that are being broken and areas where we're talking to our customers. So in the center, we sit down with our customers and we have one-on-one conversations where we get these long transcripts. And we had a group of people who were analyzing those transcripts and reading them, and they may be shared more broadly, but those were kind of in isolation. We are now integrating those into our analytics platform. At the next layer, we have events. We have a Cisco Live event where we get 20,000 verbatim comments directly from our customers, really rich data that was not necessarily being integrated into a holistic view. We're now incorporating that. We have customer satisfaction surveys. We get 100,000 verbatims per year from our customers that we're also integrating. And then and other customer surveys that we're also, a big company, we're in the process of integrating all this data. So some customer surveys we're bringing into this. If you talk about the social media, again, what we're trying to do with this voice of the customer is really isolate any social media conversation to the customer. So we have communities where there's really rich customer conversation. We have support forums that get pretty specific into product areas, but we're mining that data. Of course, we have the blogs where we get a lot of comments. And then, it's also really helpful to look at our peers' forums, our competitors' forums, and communities to understand what customers or potential customers might be saying. And we're just starting to experiment with this data to understand how can we get a better understanding and see the full spectrum of feedback that we can leverage. And so then if you look at the whole view, this is the model, developing holistic market insights. So you've got your influencers, your traditional media industry, financial analysts, your employees. The social media, again, will isolate the data, but then the complementary team where we have real-time monitoring and engagement based on sentiment. And then the customer, I didn't really speak about the partner data, but it's equally as important, and we're developing that similar integrated model across all of these views. So if you take that cloud example where we just kind of looked at the left side, the idea is you can understand, okay, what's the overall perception? The analysts think, okay, we really have developed a story in the cloud, but then you get all the way deep into that customer data so that our marketing teams and our product teams can say, oh, yeah, they understand the strategy at a high level, but when we're really working with this product, they're having some issues. So it's just from beginning to end, that full spectrum view. And it's really starting to take the silos away and drive that impact. So if we go back to the cartoon from the beginning, you can see, hey, our virtual team manager says, thanks for collaborating and helping make a big impact. And the function team said, I didn't realize that what my data could help the product teams. And the country teams, they look in isolation. They don't realize how their data necessarily relates to the overall worldwide view or how it differs from all the different countries. Now we have apples to apples across countries. And the product group, wow, now I can see across the board the perception of my product and how do I make it better and how do I message better and how do I develop better. And so we are really breaking down these silos. We may not have solved world peace, but we are making an impact for Cisco. Oh. No?
Thanks for the presentation, it's excellent. I had a couple of questions. Firstly, when you talked about the employee sentiment,
Yep.
In a generic sense, do you actually drill down? I mean, so for example, if there was an acquisition, you want to see what the company's, the wisdom of the crowds, what they think about an acquisition or a product release, or is it just generic, I'm happy working at Cisco?
No, we can drill down as deeply as we need to, and usually do some analysis on where that conversation is happening. So then when we're communicating with those employees, like if it's something specific to an acquisition, this is where that conversation tends to happen and this is what they care about. So we should, and we also actually look at influencers. So we take that data and we look at who's who's speaking positively and who's speaking negatively, kind of like the net promoters. And we actually develop some of our messaging. So we may test or work with some of those influencers or detractors within Cisco and say, okay, this is what's going to happen. So yeah, we can drill to a pretty deep level.
I thank you. One quick question. I may have missed it. How is this organized? This report under marketing or?
It's under strategic marketing. But if you look at the concentric rings, all of those are throughout the organization. So I think there's one of my colleagues here from IT. We have within sales, there's our voice of the customer. So we really are kind of working cross-functionally, but my team is run out of strategic marketing, and then we're collaborating with all of these groups across Cisco. Thank you.